The US-Iran war has started again. Oh my goodness, who would have thought? Who would have thought? Because we said last episode that it'd be surprising to see the war starting up again, and the only sort of scenario in which it would start would be sort of at the behest of Israel because of Lebanon, because of the bombing, the bombardment that we are seeing in Lebanon. But it started up again, and it wasn't really due to Lebanon. It wasn't as big as it was kind of being made. About a week ago, Iran struck a Singaporean vessel in the Strait, a cargo ship in the Strait, which was carrying all sorts of supplies from Singapore, right? And also other countries that they were shipping to. But the US responded. They hit the drone and missile facilities in Iran near the Strait, and that was kind of it. It was slight bickering between the states, and from this point on, I think they are going to be going back into negotiations and back into peace talks, which we discussed last week. They had agreed to IAEA inspections, which the JCPOA, Obama's Iran nuclear deal, already had, but it's fine, I guess. You know, we're going to get something similar to the JCPOA. The interesting thing here is that, yes, it had started up again. It's kind of, hopefully, probably shouldn't start up again too soon, but I'll say that, and then next week it'll be happening again. But the reality here is that the reason why I'm, a little, I guess you could say, optimistic in the sense that, the war isn't looking to be continued or prolonged, and it is looking like it will probably finish with a deal within a few weeks. There's a 60-day ceasefire that started about 2 weeks ago, so we're looking at about, I guess you could say, a few weeks time we should have a deal. Is because the US can't keep this up much longer. Iran itself can't keep this up much longer. But the reason why the United States can't, I don't know if you all saw, there was a report, I can't remember from where, but it stated that the strategic petroleum reserves in the United States, right, which is sort of the backup oil supply. It's like a savings account, if you like. You've got your regular bank account, which is your imports into the country, oil imports, and then also the oil you frack yourself. So you've got that, which the US has. And then they also have their savings account, right? Their strategic petroleum reserves. That petroleum reserve is extremely low right now. It's the lowest it's been since 1983, July 1983, about 2.5 years into Reagan's first term. It was very low then, but it's even lower now, right? And the reason why it's even lower is because the US knows that it can't continue this war much longer. And the reason why they're taking from the strategic petroleum reserves is to essentially, for the stock market to not go up so much, right? It's to essentially diminish the chances of the stock market going up massively by taking from the strategic petroleum reserve. Because if they were to take from their actual oil reserve, right, the demand of oil would become greater and the supply would be minimized because the US has less oil, right? We're talking about the stock market here. Whatever the US does, the stock market moves massively, right? As well as the other parts of the world. Also, like the Strait being closed, for example. That's why we're seeing such high oil prices, is because as a result of the Strait, about a fifth, some say a quarter, some even say a third of all oil is transported through the Strait every year, right? Not just oil, but liquefied natural gas, fertilizer, coal, other resources, electrical appliances, all of this are transferred through the Strait. And now we're seeing a Strait where Iran is just out of the blue striking cargo ships like we saw with the Singaporean vessel. So why is that? Why is Iran doing that, right? I mean, that is what started off this conflict, or this skirmish, I guess you could say, which we are discussing now. The reason why Iran is doing this is very clear. Iran is essentially, Singapore has got nothing to do with this, right? It's got nothing to do with this. They're not an ally, or at least a, someone that is backing the US in this war. They're kind of like sort of a neutral presence in this situation. But it's very clear what they're doing. They are essentially exerting dominance in the Strait. They're saying to the US, however much you might try and get away from this, or move around the fact that we own the Strait, as well as Oman, but we're sort of the ones who are pulling the strings, the ones who are, we're the alphas of the Strait, not Oman, right? We're the A side here. You're on the back foot, and we're going to continue pushing you. We control the Strait now, and there's nothing you can do about it. And we don't just control the Strait. We don't just have IRGC guys with drones and whatnot and mines and all of this. And all you need is one, because of the Strait, how narrow the Strait is. All you need is one guy with a drone. Cargo ships are so, what's his face? Cargo ships are so slow that all you need is a drone, an IRGC guy, just one, and it's all done. It's all all the cargo and the resources sink to the bottom of the Persian Gulf. So this is what we're seeing here in the Strait. Iran is exerting dominance. They're saying we're not just going to control the Strait, we are going to be charging a toll. We're going to be charging a fee for every cargo ship and vessel that goes through the Strait. They'll be paying us £2 million, as well as that 300 billion you'll be paying us for reparations. We're going to be getting £2 million per vessel that goes through the Strait. We'll be using that for reparations, and then once our country is built up, we'll be using it for whatever else we please. And this is what Iran is saying, right? Trump cannot get away from this. The fact that the Strait now belongs to Iran. That's what's going on here. That is literally the premise, essentially, and the story itself, right? Nobody really cares that some ship was targeted. The US doesn't care about that either. They're saying, what is Iran doing here? We've got such low oil supplies. We're taking from our savings account because we don't want the stock market to sort of crash and go so high that it affects the rest of the world, and then the rest of the world is blaming us and not Iran. Iran knows what they're doing. They're being very strategic here, right? It's not looking good for the United States. We've said this so many times now, but it's just looking worse and worse every week. Trump should have never done this. It was a big mistake to do this, to go into the Middle East. They should have continued negotiations. Steve Witkoff, Jared Kushner, and the Iranians, they should have continued this, even if they brought JD Vance in and even Marco Rubio in. But the reality here is that they were in they were in the US. The Israelis came to the US and they were lobbying Trump. We have to go to a war with Iran. We have to do this. On top of that, his donors, like when Miriam Adelson gave him 100 million plus, however much, she said, I want to go to war with Iran, and then I want Gaza to be annexed. The complete and total annexation of Gaza, and you must not bother us while we do that. You must not condemn us while we do that. You must not sort of speak bad about us, right, while we do that. So Trump got himself into this mess in the first place, and it's looking worse and worse every day. We'll see if a deal transpires. It probably will. It'll be similar to Obama's, but it'll probably be a lot worse in the sense that now Iran has leverage that they didn't have before the war. Iran didn't have a strait before the war. Iran weren't bombing the allies, the Gulf allies, before the war. They weren't doing any of this. This is causing a massive, massive headache for the US and Israel too, right? Because Israel wants to continue this war. The US doesn't. The US has said we literally cannot continue this war any longer. But Israel wants to keep on pushing and pushing and pushing, just like they're doing in Lebanon. But we'll see what happens, right? We'll see what happens there in Iran and Israel and the US. And we'll see if that continues or a deal is reached. Hopefully the latter.